What's going on, everybody? Well, as you know, if you've seen my review of Cult of Chucky, I was highly disappointed in this film. So much so that I actually wanted to do a separate video to go over spoiler talk, which I very, very rarely do. And it's often in movies where I have a lot of negative to say because I don't want to put spoilers in a review and ruin the experience for somebody else who might actually enjoy the movie. But for those of you that have seen Cult of Chucky, this is the time to talk about all the things specifically that really bugged me in this movie. And if you have not seen Cult of Chucky yet, and you actually plan on watching the movie, please pause this video, go watch the movie, it's on Netflix and everything now, and then come back. Do not let this video spoil your experience because you might be one of those people who actually enjoy the movie. The movie seems to be pretty divisive. I've seen more negative than positive, but it's divisive nonetheless. So basically the plot of Cult of Chucky, I'll try to summarize it the best I can, is that it opens up, you have Andy Barclay returning, played by Alex Vincent. This is our protagonist from the first 3 movies and the actor who played him in the first 2 movies. He's back again after that post-credit scene in Curse of Chucky where Chucky tried to take on Andy once again. Andy knew he was coming and blew his head off with the shotgun at the very end of the movie. Such an awesome post-credit scene. Well, the movie opens up, Andy's out on a date doesn't go so well, goes home, opens up a safe, come to find out Andy has the decapitated head of the first Chucky, the Chucky that we have been following this entire franchise. So if you're wondering why I'm saying the first Chucky, I'll get into that in a while. I'm just going to refer to him as Chucky Prime. So he's got Chucky Prime's head on this little device here, and he's torturing it, basically. He goes home every single night, he fucks with it, he talks shit to it, and basically has all the power now over Chucky. Very cool scene. Probably my favorite scene in the movie, despite a problem that I have with it, which I'll get into in a little bit. Then you go and you start following Nika, who is Fiona Dourif. She was our protagonist in Curse of Chucky, the previous movie. She's in an insane asylum for the murder of her family, which she was framed for by Chucky in the previous movie, Curse of Chucky. And now Chucky is basically possessing multiple good guy dolls, yes, multiple good guy dolls, in order to not only just kill random people throughout this insane asylum, this mental hospital, but to get to Nika in the end because Chucky wants to possess Nika, which by the end of this movie, he succeeds in doing. Despite all the people trying to stop him, despite everything that Nika tries to do, despite Andy Barclay actually making his way into this mental hospital to help her, Chucky wins in the end. He possesses Nika, walks out of the mental hospital, and laughs and rides off into the sunset with Tiffany and what is presumed to be Nika's niece possessing the doll of Tiffany in the back seat. At least that's the way that I interpreted it. Then you get the nice little post-credit scene when it shows that Kyle is going to be coming back in what is probably going to be another movie as long as this one doesn't completely bomb as far as financials go. So another cool little post-credit scene. I thought it was a little bit forced. It definitely wasn't as good as the first post-credit scene in Curse, but nonetheless, if you're a fan of Child's Play 2, it's still cool to see that character come back. So that's the basic idea of the plot of the movie. Now I'm going to go through all the problems that I have with this movie, and I'm going to try to keep it somewhat in line in the timeline of the movie, but I might jump around a little bit. So that first scene that I love so much, where Andy is torturing Chucky, finally has the upper hand, such a badass scene, except for, if you start to think about it, the scene makes absolutely no sense. Part of the rules in the Child's Play franchise is the longer that Chucky stays in the doll, the more human he becomes. He starts to bleed, he starts to feel pain, he can lose limbs, he's got guts and everything that starts to materialize on the inside. So it makes absolutely zero sense why a decapitated head of Chucky is still alive, still functioning, and still able to cough when he has smoke blown into his face. Makes absolutely no sense when you sit there and think about it. Now that's something that, you know, Don Mancini played with a little bit in Curse of Chucky too, because whenever Chucky got stabbed and everything in Curse of Chucky, all you saw was like feathers and stuffing come out, which makes no sense whatsoever. But anyway, it seemed like he went back to the blood and the guts and everything inside the Chucky for a little bit, but then it begs the question of how the hell this decapitated head is still alive. So, problem number 1 is that. Problem number 2, and this is a very small nitpick as a Child's Play fanatic, but it's still an issue that I had in the movie that bugged me, just as much as Chucky's look bugged me in Curse of Chucky. Why did they change the voice of the good guy doll in this movie? Now maybe it's a nitpick, and I admit that it's a nitpick, but I'm a Child's Play fanatic. The voice has been the same for the entire franchise, and it was a conscious decision to change that voice in this movie. You know how you can tell? Watch the trailer to the movie, and the trailer has the original good guy doll voice saying the lines of the doll, but they changed it for some reason and made it a different voice. It's completely jarring. Why did they do that? I have no idea, but that's another small negative for me for this movie as a longtime Chucky fan. Next problem that I have with it is that the whole thing about possessing multiple dolls, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest new element they bring into this movie, and it's one of the biggest problems I have with it for a very, very large reason. It makes absolutely no sense within the context of this franchise. If Chucky had that ability, why is he not using it before now? Why has he not used that from the beginning? And I've had people try to explain, well, you know, his powers have just developed over time, and, you know, he didn't have the time in the other movies because he was always on the run, always busy doing something to research new spells. No, all that is just trying to forgive bad, cheap, lazy writing, okay? That's exactly what this is. It's a cheap, lazy writing device to insert something fresh into this movie just for the sake of inserting something fresh. But then, if you think about it, it makes absolutely no sense. Because if Chucky can possess any person and any doll, and he does say that he can possess any person that he wants, there's a line in the movie where he says, I can possess anything with 2 arms that can stab, living or something or someone. It's an actual quote. You can go ahead and fact check me on that. So he can possess any doll, any people, anybody that he wants at the drop of a hat with this new little spell that he's got. So now Chucky's unstoppable. Now all the other movies are basically his struggle was stupid and irrelevant in the first 6 movies because now he has this ability where he can just look at somebody, "Ade du ambala, wake," and now he can just possess anybody with the drop of a hat with no effort whatsoever. That's stupid to me. It makes no sense whatsoever. And not only that, they only give you a very cheap joke for an explanation for it. His explanation is, you know, I was looking on the internet one day and found a Voodoo for Dummies thing that helped me find this new chant, and ever since then, everything's been great. No, that's bad writing. There's no getting around it. It's bad writing. That's kind of the main negative that flows throughout this whole thing is bad, lazy writing. My next issue. Okay, so the whole determination of Chucky to possess Nica to me makes absolutely no sense, especially when you have Andy Barclay in the mix. If Andy Barclay was not in this movie, I would understand it more. If he didn't know where Andy was or couldn't find him or whatever, so now Nica is his new nemesis, that would make sense. But the fact that they shoehorned Andy Barclay into this movie, and I'd hate to use that term shoehorned, but that's the way they utilize his character in this movie. He's not utilized well at all. They shoehorn him in the movie, and now it makes no sense why Chucky would go through so much hell to possess Nica when his arch nemesis is right there. Why does it makes no sense to me. No sense whatsoever. If you have the person who whooped your ass the first 3 movies, has been bearing on your mind that you could not kill this little motherfucker. And it's even the thing that pisses off Chucky a lot in Curse of Chucky when Nica starts throwing it back at him about he never defeated Andy Barclay, and he just gets boiled with rage. And that's what leads to that great post-credit scene where he finally tracks down Andy and decides to finally put a knife in his ass. If he's right there, why are you making a beeline for Nica? It makes no sense. I'm going to say that a lot. It makes no sense because it doesn't. Passing on finally defeating and possessing your arch nemesis for a girl that we've only seen in 1 movie is not only nonsensical in the plot, it's kind of very underwhelming as a Chucky fan that you finally have the opportunity for Chucky to win, truly win in this movie, and you cop out to give it to the new lead actress of this franchise. It doesn't make any sense to me. So, doesn't really make sense. And not only that, it's felt like, when I watched it a second time, it felt like he utilized that, Don Mancini, he utilized that plot device just so he could insert yet another lesbian scene into this movie. Now, do not twist my words. I'm not saying that being gay is wrong. I'm not making any commentary on that whatsoever. I'm not even saying you can't put a lesbian scene in these movies. But the 3 movies that he has directed, Seed of Chucky, the little intern has like this lesbian fetish with Jennifer Tilly. Then you have Curse of Chucky, and then you have whatever she was like the nanny, or she was the babysitter that had the lesbian relationship with the mom, the sister that gets killed. And now in this movie, he possesses Nica just so you can have that weird little awkward makeout scene between Nica and Tiffany at the very end. It just feels like he's forcing it down your throats for the sake of forcing it there. It doesn't add anything to the story, the fact that Nica made out with Jennifer Tilly. It just feels like Don Mancini, who is an openly gay man, is inserting that in there and tailoring the story just to insert that scene. Maybe I'm seeing things that aren't there. It just felt that way to me because that made such little sense to me that he would possess Nica. Now moving on to my next point. Andy Barclay was a moron in this movie. And that's why it disappoints me that I have to say that they shoehorned him into this, because they did. Outside of that awesome opening scene where he's torturing Chucky's head, every single thing that he does in this movie helps nothing. Helps nothing. As soon as he is on the charge going to help Nika, he gets to this mental hospital. He punches a guard to commit himself, which that's not that fucking easy. You don't just punch a guard and then get locked into a mental hospital that is very secure. It's not the way that that works. So there's red flag number one of bad writing. Then he gets in there, and I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, okay, he's got to have some kind of a plan. There's got to be something that he's going to have that's going to be revealed, and it's going to be this badass thing that Andy's been planning all along. He's going to get the upper hand and take down Chucky yet again. And what is his plan? Well, he stuck a gun in this random good guy doll that he had that for some reason has its hair chopped off, which they never get into why. Then he sends it to this mental hospital, somehow knew that the doll was going to be possessed or would somehow wind up in his possession while he's in his little padded room. The Chucky doll shows up, he sticks his hand up into his fucking stomach, pulls the gun out, shoots every single bullet that comes in the gun that he supplied himself with, and then turns around and has nothing to fight the actual Chucky with that is possessing Nika, gets locked into the insane asylum, and that's the last that we see of Andy Barclay in this movie. Pretty much just forcing his storyline in the next movie to be getting rescued. That is ridiculous. He is such a fucking idiot in this movie that it makes no sense to me as somebody that defeated him in 3 movies and now he is the biggest dumbass and has the most nonsensical, idiotic plan to get Nika out and to defeat Chucky, that it pissed me off as a Chucky fan that they did that to Andy Barclay. Don Mancini himself made the lead protagonist of the Child's Play franchise a fucking moron. Can't forgive that. Can't forgive that one bit. Now talking about that scene wherever he pulled the gun out of the doll's stomach, shot him a bunch of times, and then smashed its face in. Here's another inconsistency in this movie, which is also a betrayal of the rules of Child's Play. The doll having blood and everything in them. So I already had the problem with the decapitated head in the beginning. Now you get the 3 dolls that are in this mental hospital, one of which loses its entire arm at some point in the movie, yet it's just a plastic nub. There's no blood or bone or anything coming out at all. Then, minutes later, literally minutes later, with this doll having just lost its arm, you have the Chucky doll that Andy supplied with the buzzed hair that gets shot a bunch of times and gets his face smashed in, and there's blood and guts everywhere. How could you be any more inconsistent with that? So one doll is all plastic, but one doll, especially the one that's most recently possessed, which is the ass backwards rule of this Child's Play franchise, that the longer you're in the doll, the more human you become. The one that's recently possessed is the one that suddenly has all the fucking internal organs, but the one that's been possessed for days on end, possibly weeks or months, is just pieces of plastic. No, again, bad writing. Bad writing. Now on to my next point. And I know I'm ranting, guys. This is basically a rant, but, you know, doing it very informal, just talking about all the things that really aggravated me in this. Here's the next thing. Now, I hate Seed of Chucky. Even though I really am disliking Cult of Chucky is still a couple of miles above Seed of Chucky, which is the bottom of the barrel for this franchise. But this movie inserts dialogue into the movie to tell the viewer that in this timeline, Don Mancini is still making Seed of Chucky a part of the canon of this franchise. They're not ignoring it. They're not wiping it away. Everything that happened in Seed happened. Jennifer Tilly got possessed. They killed Redman. They had Glenn and Glenda, all that shit. So they insert these lines in here, mostly coming from Tiffany, to let the audience know that, hey, that movie you don't like still exists in this universe. What is the point of doing that if you're not going to address Glenn and Glenda? Not only do they not include them in the movie, they don't offer any explanation for why they're not there. And if you're going to use the multiple doll aspect of this, why would you not use Glenn and Glenda for that and get rid of this multiple doll possession bullshit that makes absolutely no sense? You could have had Chucky, his son, and his daughter all possessing dolls coming into this mental hospital, and not only would that make more sense, but it would actually, if it was written and executed well, kind of make you forgive those characters for how stupid they were in Seed of Chucky. If Glenn and Glenda were these wicked-ass characters that were getting these great kills and having this great interaction with Chucky, and all 3 of them were like this tour de force tearing through this mental hospital, that is much more sensical than what you did with just giving him this random chant that with a throwaway explanation for now Chucky can possess anything and anybody he wants. So that bugged me as well. If you're going to make Seed a part of the canon, make it a part of the canon. Don't just say it because Don Mancini doesn't want to admit that he made a shit movie. Make it a part of the canon. Explain Glenn and Glenda. Bring them back or explain why they're not there. As much as I don't want to see Glenn and Glenda again, bring them back or make sense of why they're not there. Getting on to the smaller points now. So, okay. Going back a little bit, and I said I might be jumping around. This is, again, just being freeform. If Chucky's entire mission in this movie is to possess Nica, that is his end game. To possess Nica, walk out of the mental hospital, and finally be free of the doll body and be in a human body again. If that's his goal this entire movie, why does he fuck around so much? He literally has 2 or 3 opportunities to possess Nica before the scene where he actually possesses Nica, and he chooses not to. And the movie doesn't explain any reason why. It's not like he has to get her to believe. It's not like his powers aren't quite grown yet. It's not like he needs all 3 of the dolls in the room at once to kind of make all the souls come together or anything. No, the movie doesn't bother giving you any explanation for that. They'd give you a scene where Nica slits her wrist, Chucky sews it back up to taunt her, writes in the blood, and then leaves her to go on her merry way until later on in the movie when she's in front of her doctor, the psychiatrist that's molesting and raping her for the, multiple times. For the very first time you see that scene, Chucky's there, knocks the dude over the head, then still, yet again, lets her go free until later on in the movie. If he's trying to possess Nica, why does he keep fucking around? That makes no sense. Bad writing, lazy writing. Why wouldn't you do it whenever he first saw Nica there, basically passed out, no strength whatsoever from the loss of blood, sew that shit up, possess her then, the movie would have been over in 15 minutes, I understand that, but again, the writing is there. If he's there, if that's his goal, it makes no sense whatsoever why he wouldn't do it then. Bad writing. Moving on from that. Another small detail, sorry for how scattered these points are. Another small detail is that, going back to the inconsistency with the dolls and which ones have blood and everything, another part of that lore and the rules that they kind of betray in this is the dolls feeling pain. Now, it was established definitively in all the other movies that once Chucky is in this doll for a little bit and starts to become human, he feels pain. In the first movie, that's the first thing that he says to the voodoo guy is, "I got shot and it hurt like a son of a bitch." Well, in this movie, you got dolls getting their hands melted with fucking flames being held up against it. You got dolls getting smothered with pillows. None of them feel any pain whatsoever. The doll's sitting there getting his fingers melted. The fucking things are coming down to look like Pennywise's claws. And he's just sitting there not feeling any pain. He doesn't have a tear shed. He doesn't freak the fuck out later on like he was just playing it off and like, "Oh, motherfucker, that hurt." Nothing. The dolls don't feel pain in this. Again, another rule, another piece of the Child's Play lore that was just torn up and thrown out in this. Another scene that makes absolutely no sense, which I didn't catch the first time, but I caught it this time that I rewatched the movie. There's a scene in the movie where I believe the character's name is Madeline. She's the one that thinks that Chucky is her baby. She's carrying Chucky outside. Then you got Multiple Malcolm who comes outside. They're standing in front of this open grave. She drops the doll in. Then she pushes Multiple Malcolm into the grave to give the facade and to fake out the audience that Chucky has just possessed Multiple Malcolm now, because he gets out and he looks at Nica and he's all menacing, and then he starts talking like Charles Lee Ray later on. Then in the end of the movie, it's revealed that that was just him fucking around again, just putting on a new multiple personality to try to feel relevant, to try to be like Chucky when he wasn't, right before he gets the drill through the eye. Which is a cool little fake out. It's a very simple fake out, but it's a cool little fake out leading up to that kill. But once you realize that that was a fake out, now the scene that preceded it makes absolutely no sense again. Because why would Madeline push him into the grave if he wasn't going to get possessed? Pushes him in, he climbs back out. Now that whole scene is just like, okay, that was again cheap, lazy writing that makes no sense when you actually stop and think about it for more than 2 seconds and not just watch it mindlessly. It makes absolutely no sense why that would happen. And there's no explanation for it whatsoever. It's just put in there as a device to fake out the audience, but once you realize it's a fake out, now the scene doesn't work. 2 more points, guys, and then I'll just kind of wrap up my thoughts on Cult of Chucky, and hopefully I won't have to talk about it again for a while. The other thing, as far as Chucky's new abilities, Chucky says in the movie that he can possess anything and anyone. I've already addressed this point. He can possess anything and anyone, and yet he only possesses dolls in the movie. He's got multitudes of doctors, nurses, other patients and everything that he can, security guards that he can possess with this quick little chant, and he doesn't possess a single person in this movie. He even says that he did it to the niece. the one that he possesses at the very end of Curse of Chucky. So it's proven that he can do it. He's not just bullshitting. But in the movie, he only possesses dolls. If you're trying to have an advantage, dolls are not really that big of an advantage. If you're going to really fuck some people up, you could possess a security guard, you could possess a doctor, you could possess anybody else, but he chooses not to use that power. Again, you throw it in there, you tell us that he has the ability to do it, now we're just wondering why he hasn't done it, and it makes no sense yet again. So I feel like I've kind of ranted, guys. Again, I feel like I rambled a little bit, and I apologize if this wasn't the most entertaining video. This was really just more of a deeper explanation for those that were interested in finding out why, as a hardcore Chucky fan, especially my subscribers that know I'm a hardcore Chucky fan, why I was so upset and so kind of angry to a degree in my review at some of the things that made no sense to me in this movie. These are all the reasons why. There's probably a few more that I'm forgetting, and some of them I probably kind of repeated myself and jumped around a little bit too much, but this is basically just a free form thinking of, okay, that didn't make sense to me, that didn't make sense to me, that didn't make sense to me. So I'm putting it out there to help my subscribers understand why I didn't like this movie very much, and to explain to those that might be new subscribers why I didn't like this movie very much. And if you do like this movie, and if you have counter arguments for any of these points, please, by all means, put in the comment section below why you either disagree or your own explanation for why that works or how you interpreted things. You might be able to change my mind. I'm not opposed to that. I love having conversations with different opinions. So if you guys like this movie, if you think that I'm being nitpicky, if you think I'm reading too much into a movie about a doll that gets possessed by a serial killer, and that is fair, please tell me down in the comment section below. And if you agree with all these points, or if you even think of some more things that don't make any sense in this movie, put those down below too. So at the end of the day, guys, just a big disappointment with Cult of Chucky. I don't change my review rating at all. In fact, the longer that I've sat on this movie, the more I've thought about it and rewatching it again, the rating that I would have given it if I reviewed it today probably would have been just a little bit lower, because so many more things stuck out to me this time as just nonsensical bad writing. Once I realized that by the end of my first viewing that was the main issue with the movie, was Don Mancini just inserting things that don't need to be there, making all the mistakes that he made with Seed of Chucky, to a much lesser degree, albeit, but mistakes nonetheless that we have seen him make before and that he should have known better than to make again. So what do you guys think about Cult of Chucky? What do you think about my points here in this spoiler talk? Like I said, put all your thoughts down below, whether you agree or disagree with me. Let's get a conversation going on Cult of Chucky. And if you guys want to check out the rest of my Chucky review series, I've got everything up to Bride of Chucky, which I'm going to be releasing here very soon, out for you guys to enjoy. And look out for Bride, Seed, and then finally Curse of Chucky to wrap up this review series throughout the month of October, as well as my Texas Chainsaw Massacre review series. If you want to check out some of my social media links, I've got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter down below, including my Patreon page, which is a great way to support this channel and a good way to get exclusive, cool content for your eyes only if you decide to be a patron. If you don't want to be a patron, totally cool. Just enjoy the videos. They will always be free for you to enjoy. So check all that out, guys. And if you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.